Final day of 2022. What's worth remembering? Yep, it's end of the year time, which means I'll do a quick little overview of how the year was for me on a number of fronts and also talk about what I thought the best pieces of entertainment this year were. This is a broad top 10. It will contain shows, it'll contain movies, it'll contain video games. I'm not doing separate categories for each. I'm just lumping them all together in a top 10. I don't watch enough of any one category to do one. Well, I could do one of just movies, but then I don't see enough new shows to do a top 10 of those. Maybe a top 5, it'd be iffy. And I've been playing more games that are several years old, so that kind of gets weird. I like to just lump them all together into one thing. That said, I'll have a fair number of honorable mentions because this has been a pretty strong year, especially when it came to movies. In some areas, not all. We'll get to that. I'll do some dishonorable mentions as well. But for me, this has been a bit of a tumultuous year. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world, particularly in terms of the open hostility towards queer people, trans people in specific, that I could really do without. So that's not great. Personal life has been a bit up and down. I'm okay. I'm doing okay, but previous years, over the last two previous years of the pandemic, I kind of had years that are like, yeah, there's a lot bad on the grand scale, but like on a personal level, they were pretty good years. Not as much the case this time, but I got through it. In terms of my output, my work, what I do, I hit all of my growth goals for my various platforms. I wanted to get to 60,000 on this channel. I did. I wanted to break 10,000 on the Break Room of Geeks. That happened actually a ways back into the year. I wanted to break 6,000 on the Council of Geeks Twitter. I did that. Wanted to break 2,000 on the Vera Wild Twitter. I did that. I wanted to hit 50,000 on TikTok, which I just barely under the wire on that one. And I did also have certain number goals for the spicy page that exists elsewhere. And I hit those as well. And so that all felt good. There were some things that I had hoped to get done that I didn't. I really wanted to get the audiobook of my novel Dreams of Fire finished and made available this year. That hasn't happened. It will happen next year. I don't know exactly when. It is a long process doing the editing on that. It'll get done. I can't say exactly when. So, some disappointment there. In terms of my output and of specific things and videos, my most successful videos were not exactly what I would have preferred them to be. My 3 most successful videos were videos about Ezra Miller, J.K. Rowling, and Joss Whedon. So, unfortunately, even with plenty to talk about, with new announcements regarding Doctor Who, my most viewed stuff is basically breakdowns of drama and scandal, which I try and be selective about the ones I choose to do and have them be ones that I actually feel like I have something to say. But I don't super enjoy doing them, and I really don't like that it's my most viewed stuff of the year and my top 3 most viewed at that. But it happens, and I kind of expected it. Setting aside most successful, some of the videos that I made this year that I am particularly proud of include the video that I did on disability representation, on depictions of consent, the video I did about representation of fat bodies framed around a conversation about Fat Thor. I got to go to Gallifrey 1 where I met Jason Hay-Gallery. I got to interview him. I'm very proud of that. I'm quite proud of the video I did on book bannings and challenges. I'm quite proud of the MCU Body Count series, which launched this year and will end next year. I'm going to finish out the core 6 Avengers, as I said I would, but that'll be it. While I am proud of those videos, they don't do especially well, especially considering how much work they are. So that series will not continue past finishing out the 6 original Avengers. So we have remaining Hulk, Black Widow, and Thor, but then that'll be it next year. The video I am most proud of actually is not a Council of Geeks video. It's a video over on the Vera Wild channel. And it was a video talking to content creators who got into more spicy content creation after first finding success in more mainstream platforms, and what that journey was like, what drew them to that, and what that experience was like. I basically made a documentary. It's about 85 minutes long. I'm really proud of that. Didn't get a ton of views, but I'm really, really happy with how that turned out. But that's enough of a look at me, myself personally. Let's talk about the pieces of entertainment from this year. There was a lot good. There was a lot of good stuff that did not make this list officially. Include things like Our Flag Means Death, Wakanda Forever, Umbrella Academy Season 3. The Hellraiser reboot was surprisingly good. I actually would count Power of the Doctor. I was shocked at how much I liked that, and I've rewatched it, and I still liked it a lot. That was real fun to discover that it wasn't just the spur of the moment that I was liking it in. I am that one person on the internet who defends Thor Love and Thunder. I had a lot of fun with it. Violent Night was great. We had 2 seasons of Dead End Paranormal Park this year, which were both great. My Father's Dragon. Weird, the Al Yankovic story was a delight. Shredder's Revenge was a video game released this year that was a perfect blend of nostalgic entertainment, really bringing to mind the old TMNT beat-em-ups from the Konami era while being more up-to-date and more modern. That was a great time. Barbarian has an impeccable first act. It didn't fully lose me, but it doesn't hold me as well once it gets past that. But that first act of that movie is absolute gold, no notes. And the one that came the closest to making the list proper, like by that much it missed it, was Star Trek Strange New Worlds. That one was real close. That's real good. I'm looking forward to hopefully following it as it is released in the new year. Those are the honorable mentions. There were also a few things that I had really wanted to get to, and I will hopefully get to in the new year and do reviews when I do, but I did not manage to fit them in before the year ended, so they are not in consideration for this list. So some things that I really wanted to get to and see this year that I just haven't had the time for include Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Top Gun Maverick, Prey, Wednesday, and the new Interview with a Vampire series. I would like to check out all these. I'm hopeful that I'll enjoy all of them. I have not had the time to get to them. We're going to hold off on the dishonorable mentions until we start to do some of the list proper. I'll come back to those. But let us do the top 10 pieces of entertainment according to me in 2022. Number 10, A League of Their Own. So you may have caught that Our Flag Means Death got an honorable mention. I did enjoy Our Flag Means Death. I appreciated what it was doing, but it wasn't quite fully clicking with me. This did. This was basically my super queer show of the year. This show is really, really gay and really sweet and wonderful, and focusing on the bonds and the relationships between these women and being reflective of the major part of the story of this era of women's baseball, women's sports, this stretch of time that the movie, which I love, it's one of the only sports movies I own, that movie wasn't really allowed to deal with either issues of sexuality or of race. It touched on them incredibly briefly in the movie, and they are front and center here. Issues of race get full exploration. Issues of sexuality get full exploration, and it delivers all of that fantastically with great characters that I really came to love, and I hope we get more. Number 9, Vampire Survivors. So this is the one video game that is on the list. This is kind of the little game that could. It's fairly simple, on at least in theory, a game that it's a little bit of an endless game. It's kind of a horde game. Games like this have existed for a little bit, but usually as money-grubbing, heavily monetized, free-to-play games on mobile. This I have played on PC. It is very cheap to just buy. There's no monetization in it, other than some recent DLC, which is really good DLC. By the way, I have now unlocked almost everything there is to unlock in that DLC. That's also fantastic. New characters to play as. The new map is great. And it's just, so I saw somebody in the comments when I reviewed it in the break room of Geeks, which most of these have been reviewed in the break room of Geeks. So you should be subscribed there if you aren't already. Described it as a bullet heaven game as opposed to a bullet hell. And that really is a good descriptor. It is just so rewarding to play, to get more powerful, to unlock things. You are unlocking things constantly. It is so rewarding, and it hits the same receptors that so many deeply predatory games aim for, but without preying on you for extra money. Oh, it's so fun. Number 8, The Batman. A movie that I was convinced I was not gonna like. I was so exhausted of dark and broody Batman. I thought, there's no way I'm gonna enjoy this. I'm just so done with this. Even if it's good, I'm not gonna like it. But you know what? It was good, and I really like it. The funny thing is, if I were to take individual components, I'm not sure that any of them are my favorite anything. This isn't my favorite Batman. I don't think this is my favorite Alfred. This is not my favorite Commissioner Gordon. I don't think this is my favorite Catwoman. This is definitely not my favorite Riddler. But they are exactly the right versions of each of these characters for this movie, this setting, this tone, and this story. They don't have to be the best in a vacuum because they were the right ones for this iteration. It's just something that, I mean, saying something is more than the sum of its parts is a bit of a cliche, but it really is. It really is. It takes component parts that individually I didn't have a lot of interest in, but it's using them because they fit so well together. It is a 3-hour movie that does not feel like it's that long. It is so well focused. It truly brought in the noir and the detective sense, which was something that they had said they were going to do, but I didn't believe them. But they actually did it. And I'm genuinely excited for more of this iteration of Batman. And I have not been able to say that about any adaptation of Batman in a while. Number 7, The Sandman. Now this one, its placement is a little bit weird. It's certainly not better than the original, and I do deeply love the original. And part of my love of this is as an adaptation. When I did a video on this, it wasn't straight up a review. It was to talk about how intelligently adapted it was. Because knowing the original as well as I know it, and seeing what they took on board, what they tweaked, and noticing, okay, for the reason I think that they did that, that's a really smart change. The adaptations were so smart, and it preserved pretty much everything that you would want preserved about Sandman while tweaking things that weren't necessarily flaws in the original, but now work better for the way it's being presented. That was a smart change. And those are across the board, all over the place. It is just good, flat out. But I experienced it as an adaptation, and it is a masterful adaptation. Number 6, Glass Onion. Just barely squeaked in towards the end of the year. I was fairly confident I was going to like this, but I also thought in the back of my head, it's not going to be as good as Knives Out. And the one thing that it can't recreate is the newness of Knives Out. And it can't catch me off guard in quite the same way to quite the same degree. But you know what? It is as good. It is actually just as good as Knives Out. And that was such a delight to watch it. It's an amazing cast. It is funny. It is a terrific skewering of a very different kind of rich person from the folks who got skewered in Knives Out, which was also great, partly for that reason as well. But this is just, and especially in light of some things that have gone on in the last month or two with some of the people that are the type of person that this is sending up, it just makes it all the more fun. This is great. Number 5, Peacemaker. When I knew that James Gunn was doing a spin-off from the Suicide Squad and I heard it was going to be Peacemaker, I remember thinking, why? What is there to do with a character like this? A lot, as it turns out. Because James Gunn is proving himself to be a specialist in the examination and the deconstruction of toxic masculinity. And if you're going to do that, Peacemaker is not only a good character, he is in fact the perfect character to do that with. To really examine what makes someone who has some moral grounding, who has some desire to help and do good, but just has a deeply messed up sense of who he is supposed to be. And to understand where that comes from and how, even though he's trying to make himself better, he's still hampered in a lot of ways and might always be, acknowledging the limitations of his ability to be a better person while putting so much emphasis on the fact that he is trying to the best of his ability. It's really, really well balanced. And the rest of the cast is great. It's a terrific ensemble cast and one of the best opening credit sequences in television history. Don't even try and argue with me on that. Number 4, Andor. I did a fairly recent video on this, but it has been a long time since I have liked something Star Wars this much. This captures an aspect of Star Wars that I feel is underexplored, is underappreciated. The life and the turmoils of day-to-day people under the heel of the Empire. This gives them voice. This gives them focus. This emphasizes that the need to defeat the Empire is because of the lives of these people. Normal people whose names will never be remembered, never recorded by history. They matter. And when they stand up as one and they fight because you have to, this is such a brilliant piece of anti-fascist entertainment. You don't fight because you yourself are imminently threatened. You fight because someone, everyone who can, has to fight this thing, however they are able. It was so rewarding. It was so well paced. It was so well acted. It was so perfectly focused. It was lacking any of the fan service stuff that feels like it's just there to make people go, oh, I recognize the thing. Like, none of that. It was so just determined to be the best version of what it was, and it succeeded. So before we get to the top 3, we are going to cover some dishonorable mentions. Broadly speaking, the MCU was a bit of a letdown this year. There were a couple that made my honorable mention, like Wakanda Forever and Thor Love and Thunder, but they also weren't enough to make the top 10. And I still like the MCU, but there were also some fairly big disappointments. She-Hulk is getting a partial dishonorable mention. It did thankfully pull together in the last 3 episodes, which are great. And if they do another season, I hope that they build off what those did much more than what the first chunk of it was, because it really felt like it floundered for a bit. But those last 3 episodes were really good and really focused and really smart, and I want more of that. It took a while to get there, though. I was really worried I wasn't going to like any of it, because not only do I love She-Hulk as a character, I love the specific stories that this show was pulling its influences from. So not liking as much of that show as I did was already a disappointment. It did thankfully pull it together at the end. The Marvel piece that is getting a full dishonorable mention, though, because it is the single most disappointing piece of entertainment that I took in all year, is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It was okay when I watched it originally, but the more I've thought about it, the less there is to like. There was some fun ideas, some neat visuals. I appreciated Sam Raimi's visual flair. Like, pretty much everything that I like about it, I can pretty much chalk up to that. The writing is It's uninventive, given the premise. Given the title, it's quite uninventive. And it really did Wanda dirty. Just as a character. It did her dirty really badly. And I was kind of like, oh, that's a shame after I first saw it. But the more I think about it, like, no, it's actually really messed up. All the best stuff was thanks to Raimi and the flair and energy that he brought. And that's what kept it from being any kind of worse. That's why I say it's the most disappointing movie. It's not the worst movie this year. I don't really see, I go out of my way to avoid movies that I think I will really dislike. So I don't really have a worst, but I do have a most disappointing. And yeah, that was an easy shoo-in. But let's get back to the good stuff. Top 3. Number 3, Nope. Oh, Jordan Peele. He hasn't let me down yet. Get Out was phenomenal. Us is a movie that gets better every time I rewatch it. And Nope is not a letdown from that legacy. It is so tense and so visually inventive in terms of not only the way it is shot, but the depiction and the design of some of the stuff that goes on is horrifyingly gorgeous. The performances across the board just, they suck you in. They make you care about these characters. They make you want them to be okay. And it is so tense waiting to see what is going to happen. And it does some things that I had to like sit with and really think about. Why is that there? What does it mean? And realizing, oh, that's why. Oh, it's even better than I thought. Like, first coming out of it, I already liked it. But it's one of those movies, you know how I kind of said that the more I thought about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, the less I liked it. The more I think about this movie, the more I like it. It's, oh gosh, it's so good. Number 2, RRR. This is easily the most cathartic and joyous experience that I had watching this year. I did a full review on that. I'm pretty sure I did full reviews for everything I'm talking about. The sense of just jumping up from my seat and pumping my fist in the air and going, yes, while watching this, which I did actually literally do while watching it alone in my freaking living room. It's just so triumphant, this movie. The presence of the leads, their chemistry. This is the greatest bromance put to film since Hot Fuzz. It's phenomenal. The action is ridiculous in the best way. Don't bother asking how physics works. Physics is taking the day off. This is rule of cool. We allow it because it's awesome. And we need no more justification than that. But even aside from that, like a movie cranked up to 11 like this should wear you down. It doesn't, because it shifts its focus. Everything is cranked up to 11, but we're going to do action scene cranked up to 11, romance scene cranked up to 11, phenomenal dance scene cranked up to 11. It shifts its focus enough. And even like doing melodrama cranked up to 11, it's hitting different emotional notes as it goes. So you're still getting that reprieve. So you're not like getting action overload, but everything is still so heightened. It's so good. It came close to getting the number 1. It's real close. I do have to acknowledge there is a propagandist aspect to it, like especially towards the very end. I will acknowledge that. That does not diminish my opinion, and I will still happily keep watching this and rewatching it. But there is that. But also, as amazing as this is, the creativity that went into the number 1 singles out as something truly deeply special. My pick for the number 1, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. How much was Marvel kicking itself in the head when this came out and they realized, oh my gosh, people have seen what you can actually do with the concept of a multiverse, and we did this lame-ass thing. This is what you can do with a truly inventive approach, rather than using a concept to tell a fairly standard story that could have been told with any other number of concepts. This takes a concept like a multiverse and tells a story that truly could not be told by any mechanism other than a multiverse. And it's not just about dealing with alternate versions of yourself. Everything about how everything is interconnected, is intercut, is interwoven. This story should be impossible to follow. It's not, because it centers on characters and it makes you care about those characters. All of them phenomenally acted. Every single one. Michelle Yeoh, first of all, but also Stephanie Sue, Jamie Lee Curtis, Ke-Huy Quan. Oh my gosh, this cast, the action scenes are amazing and preposterous. And the build of this, hooking this core emotional story, making it ultimately a story that is emotionally quite simple, even as the logistics are mind-bending. This is a story that I do not think could have been told in any way other than the way they told it, and it is a unique, just masterpiece. This is art. I'm not even sure I could call it an artsy film, but it is undoubtedly art. It does something that I've not seen done before. Narratively, visually. This is a unique piece that deserves all the celebration. And I think it was the best thing that I saw this year. That is 2022, my friends. What did you think was the best stuff that came out this year? Anything. Books, I didn't even talk about because I didn't read anything that was new this year, but books, video games, shows, movies. What did you think was the best stuff? Drop something down in the comments. Let us talk about it. Patreon's what pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't support me that way, like, share, subscribe, help me out. Links in the description to other things that I do, other ways you can follow or support me. But what I really want you to remember, especially going into a new year, is that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You are the council. I am just privileged enough to get to run the meetings. And until next time, next year, this council is adjourned. End of the video, so I gotta shout out my top patrons. Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfulla, Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Oliver B., Angus Bjarnason, Melinda Walters, Imudelki, Leotha Boyd, Katoria, Toy Lowly, Becky Sparks, Fernambulax the Poodle, Zach, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Tim Price, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, Shayla Gourlay, and Brendan LaRose. Thanks for your support. If you want to hear me probably mispronounce your name as well, check out the rewards on the Patreon. How you doing there?